Over the summer, I called up 10 dealerships to ask 10 car salesmen and women their thoughts on the used car market. And in these interviews, I asked them questions like, are car prices going down? Have they gone down? What their predictions are for the short and long term for the car market, as well as when the best time to buy a car was. Keep in mind that at the time of recording that video, the car market hadn't gone down significantly, but many people believed that that time was the cusp of a big shift in the used car market, which proved to be correct because shortly after recording that video, wholesale car prices went down 10.6%. But despite this, those car salesmen believed that right then, the summer of 2022 was in fact the best time to buy a car. And some even said that car prices were never going to go down.
No, I mean, me stepping out of a salesman, right now is like the best time to buy, because, we're going to have another, spike on the prices. So prices are going to go up again,
And this, of course, made me think, what do car salesmen currently think of the car market? So I re-recruited my husband, HP, and we decided to ask them. So we called up 10 more dealerships and we asked them if they had a few moments for a few questions.
Do you have a second to talk about the used car market? Can I ask you about the car market? Yeah, can we talk about the used car market for a second? Like, what's all going on?
And in these phone calls, we asked each car salesman the 3 same questions.
So what are you seeing as far as prices go? Have the prices gone down? Do you think the prices are going to keep going down? I know the holidays, typically, bring that, but do you think prices as a whole are going to go down? When do you think is the best time to buy a new car with this kind of market?
And I'm going to be honest, the results were actually sort of helpful. Most car salesmen and women agree that prices have gone down, and they are certainly off of their highs. But let's be honest, they would have to be a bit delusional to not at least agree to that. And as far as the future of car buying goes, the responses were a bit mixed. Most sales representatives admitted that they can't predict the future, and prices probably will continue to go down through the rest of 2022. But as far as 2023 goes, they weren't really sure.
Probably through the year, through the rest of at least 2022, they will probably stay at where they're at for pre-owned vehicles. 2023, we don't know what the market.
Other car salesmen were flat out rude.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I have no idea, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. Okay.
And other car salesmen were actually genuinely helpful, and it seemed as though they were trying to give their best advice, stating that car prices might fall here and there month by month for the next few months, but until inventory increases, car prices won't drop significantly. One salesman even cited that if a company like Carvana was to go under, that could be a huge game changer for used car prices because of the influx in inventory that would cause, and I have to agree with him.
Well, yeah, even on the pre-owned side, the only thing I can see eventually happening is if Carvana or, these big online retailers, if they start to go downhill a little.
And as far as the best time to buy a car, the consensus pretty much was the end of the year.
The last month of the year, last month of the fourth quarter, they're going to roll out some type of incentives.
Yeah, I'd say sometime around the winter time whenever our sales are low.
Gotcha.
To be honest.
Gotcha.
That's probably the best for any dealer.
But one salesman did say that because the market is still relatively strong, normal sales trends are pretty much thrown out the window. And nowadays, it doesn't really matter when you buy a car. The prices are going to be relatively consistent.
It used to be at the end of the year because we wanted to get rid of new inventory, but we don't really need to do that because everything's coming in sold. So really, any time of the year is a good time in this current market, just because the normal cycles we have kind of gone out the window.
But HP and I both disagree with this.
You got it. Okay.
That was such that was good in a sense that he sounded like he was honest and well knowledgeable, but it's funny how it's all your cycles are out the door, so quarters mean nothing anymore, so you're not getting your monthly bonus anymore. There's cycles for everything, and people need to sell cars at the end of the year regardless. They're going to hit their bonuses. They're going to get negotiating.
Now, I'm going to be honest, this time around talking to dealerships was much more pleasant than 6 months ago. Whenever we spoke to salesmen the first time around, I feel as though the salesmen were rude, they were condescending, and they really were telling us anything that they felt like we wanted to hear or needed to hear in order to make a vehicle purchase, despite the fact that in general, the advice was really poor. While this time around, with the exception of one person that we spoke to, the salespeople really did seem like they were trying to help us and trying to give us the best advice that they have to give. And whether that advice is correct or accurate is definitely a point that could be argued. The point though is that I felt like they had good intentions behind this advice. which I think in itself is actually really interesting. HP and I were talking off camera, and we were talking about this shift in tone that we saw this time around versus this same conversation that we had 6 months ago. And I think that the shift in tone also tells us a story about how the car prices are trending and how the market has shifted over the last 6 months. You see, 6 months ago, the dealership absolutely had the upper hand on the customer. Limited availability, high prices, and no negotiations made it so that if a customer wanted to buy a car and the dealership had that car in the price range that you were looking for, it didn't really matter whether or not you liked the salesman. You had very little options to choose from, and chances are you were going to buy that car whether or not you were a fan of that salesman itself. Because of this, salesmen could kind of be rude, condescending. They didn't really have to answer your questions accurately because they knew that they had the upper hand. While this time around, salesmen were actually super nice, and I think that in part, this is because that they know that customer service matters more than it did 6 months ago. And if a customer feels like you're being rude, condescending, or simply unhelpful, they're gonna go to another dealership because chances are there are 10, 20, 30 dealerships around the entire country selling the exact car that they're selling. And earning the business of that customer is harder than it was before. Personal relationships matter much more in car buying and car selling than it did 6 months ago, and I certainly think that shift has been reflected in the conversations that we had today. Now, one thing that I do want to note is that for those of you who don't know, HP actually used to be a car salesman. He was a car salesman before he quit his job in order to work for our company full time. And one of the reasons why I like to include him in these videos is because he's not only viewing these conversations and the car market from the lens of a car buyer who owns his own business and is always buying vehicles, but he also views it from a lens of a car salesman because that's what he used to do for a living. Now, one question that we didn't ask these dealerships, but I know I get asked it all the time, is the question of if wholesale prices are down 10.6%, why are we not seeing these price decreases at a dealership level? If you were to walk into a dealership today, the reality is you wouldn't find prices 10.6% lower than they were 6 months ago, even though at wholesale they are going down that much lower. And so I decided to ask HP.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely because it's greed. They're making a bunch of money, and they have been. Why would they want to follow the market trends when they're making peak money? They only follow market trends really whenever it's like they have to. Yeah, but they don't have to right now. I mean, they have all the power. They have all the cars. If they buy all their cars at this price and they are continually making that high premium price, why would they give it up? I think it's like a general rule of thumb. If everyone's doing it, it's kind of like a gentleman's agreement. I think a lot of people buy cars at cheaper prices because you have dealerships pitting against each other. I can go lower than they can. I can afford to take some of that money and earn that business. But then you have all these dealerships now. They're all making a bunch of money. So why would they all give up all their money? They're all just going to keep prices high as they can and not try to get competitive against each other. Just screw consumers over.
So when do you think that prices will go down at a dealership level significantly?
I think prices are definitely going to go down towards the end of the year because dealerships will get out of their head that they're going to make that extra $2,000 or $3,000 per deal. I think once they're kind of reverting back to what they've only known is end of the year, we have to move volume, we have to move money. I'd rather sell 10 cars than sell 5 cars at $1,000 a piece. I think it's all about moving inventory off their lot.
I've said this in a number of videos before, but wholesale prices are the first facet of the car market to experience a car market change. When inventory increases, wholesale prices decrease. But that change does take time to trickle down to the consumer level. And the silver lining is that it's not a matter of if car prices are going to fall on a consumer level, it is simply a matter of when. And we definitely will have a point in time where consumer level prices have caught up to wholesale prices. And that's whenever we will begin to see price deductions at dealerships be 10, 12, 15%, if not more later on down the road. So the consensus of this is that prices have gone down, dealerships are beginning to negotiate more and more, incentives in some cases are even coming back. And if you can hold off on buying a used car, I would definitely wait until 2023, but if not, Q4 of this year is definitely a solid time to buy if you have no other options. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.